Hola, and welcome to Vive Nutrition Radio, the first ever Spanglish podcast where you will hear interviews with the top minds in nutrition, performance, fitness, and health in both English and Spanish. Here is your host, expert registered dietitian, Andres Ayesta, on a mission to help you take your nutrition to the next level. Hope you're ready for this. Let's dive right in.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Vive Nutrition Radio. This is your host, Andres. This is a Chit Chat series, but it's a solo one. I didn't get a chance to have Coach Tony Castillo, and registered dietitian. He usually hosts like this kind of episodes with me, but today it's a solo one because when I come in here solo, I come in here to drop some knowledge bombs and to really hope to kind of like talk about some deep stuff to help you maybe get your nutrition and your fitness journey in check. And I wanted to come in here because it's been a while since I actually shared some deeper things with you. And today, like, I'm just gonna go straight to the point. We'll be sharing with you some reasons why a lot of times you may not see the results that you may be expecting. And I'm going to kind of share some reasons and some things that you can actually do to change that today, and what can you do about it. So today, literally, I'm going to be sharing, this is all based on like an Instagram post that I had the other day, which is actually 6 reasons why you're not seeing the results that you would expect to see. And a lot of times there's some of these different things that may resonate with you, and I'm just here to kind of share some stuff and just to be talking about some of like the areas and things that I see a lot of people experience, and even myself as a dietitian, some of my own personal pains and struggles that I've actually accomplished in the past few years. And I just want to make sure that I share some of this stuff with you. And the reason why I'm doing this is because we're coming to the end of 2019. And let's be honest, as we approach the end of the year, nutrition and your fitness, unless this is kind of part of your life and it's part of your habitual things, it's not something that you pay too much attention to. And you start to put those things into the back burner, and you start to leave that behind, and you focus on other things that are more important. This is the time of the year when, there are the holiday season for, it's football season. So obviously there's like parties every Sunday and, friends' houses. And then obviously before we know it, like Thanksgiving is around the corner, and Christmas and all these different things. And we go back into that typical yearly cycle where we just get super hyped up at the beginning of the year. We achieve really cool things, and then the end of the year comes, and obviously we end up in exactly the same place that we started at. I don't know. Does that resonate with you? Does that something that happens to you? If that's the case, make sure you send me a DM on my Instagram, or just shoot me an email and let me know. Yeah, dude, that's exactly what happens to me all the time, and I'm so sick and tired of that. Because this is exactly the type of issues that most people struggle with in their fitness journey. And the reason is because they don't really build enough habits that are strong enough that they can actually sustain them. And there's some reasons why that may be happening. And when they start to ask themselves the question, hey, why am I not seeing the results that I should expect to see? Usually they know the answers to that, but they're kind of like too afraid to actually accept it in some way, shape, or form. So today, I wanted to come on here and to kind of share the typical things that I always see in many of my clients, and even on myself as I actually self-reflect, because I'm going to tell you a little story of my background and my health and fitness journey, and what kind of got me to where I am today. And no, by no means I'm going to say that I'm the fittest people on earth, but I am a person that has actually try to walk the line in my fitness journey to ensure that I can achieve whatever results I'm trying to achieve, but also enjoying the process. And I think that's a bigger part that a lot of people sometimes don't tend to see. So let's get right into it, shall we? So the first thing that I see a lot of people experience, and the reason, because I get so many, I cannot even count how many times like people come to me and say, but I eat healthy and I eat the right things, and I have the vegetables, and I have all like the right and healthy food, and everything's organic or grass-fed. And I'm like, that's not the reason why obviously you're not seeing the results. The number one reason why a lot of times people don't understand exactly what's happening, especially if these are people that are coming like maybe like already kind of fit, or they're just trying to obviously get to a body fat percentage that it's a little bit lower than what it is right now, but there's not people that are actually experiencing any kind of like weight issues. Number one is a lack of awareness. And this is something I learned from one of my coaches who actually now coaches my business. And now beforehand, he actually used to coach my nutrition. And he told me one thing, and I've said this many different times in my podcast, which is awareness always precedes change. So when we know when something is going wrong, then we know exactly what we can do to fix it. So not knowing where you're at in terms of your nutrition is the number one reason why a lot of people fail. I get so many people that are super healthy and they eat like all these salads and bowls and protein options and all these different things, and they train so hard, yet they fail to see exactly what's going on with them, and a lot of times they just lack awareness. So that's why I teach a macro counting method for my clients, just because it helps them create awareness around what they're currently doing, and they know, and so we can kind of create a lot more of an understanding exactly what their nutrition is at and what we can do to actually change that. So developing awareness around not only your nutrition, like this applies to every single area of your life. And I have talked about this in previous podcasts, specifically explaining everything in life. Like when you're talking about finances, if you don't create awareness of what your money's being spent, it's a problem that we have, then how are you expect to change, and how you expect to save, and how you expect to budget, your finances out. The same thing with, awareness around your relationship. If you don't understand exactly what you're doing wrong to actually affect your relationship, then how are you supposed to know what you need to do to change it? Same thing happens to your nutrition and fitness. And that is the first step that you right now, my friend, listening to this, as you're driving or as you're actually sitting at work, like, eating that, yogurt or protein bar that you have in your hand, you have to understand that if you don't know exactly how that fits into the bigger picture on a daily basis, my friend, I'm sorry to tell you this, but the reality is that you may not be doing, or you may not be on the right track. Now, I'm not saying you're doing things wrong, you're just not looking at the bigger picture, and that's like the bigger problem that most people experience. That usually, so that's number one. So lack of awareness is a bigger thing that a lot of people kind of struggle with, and that's the one that certainly can be changed and certainly can be moved, immediately. So the second thing I always tell people, like, now that you have awareness, so let's say like the awareness issue is not a problem, is not having a plan, not having an organization around their nutrition, which usually leads to not having consistency. I tell every single one of my clients the same thing every time they start. And I said, I usually say most of my clients, follow the consistency path, not the perfection one, because perfection usually leads to getting tired of doing the same things, and it's exhausting to be perfect about your nutrition, about your fitness. It is tiring. Now, there are times during the year in which you may have to go through that process, in which you have to be strict, you have to weigh things out to the T in order for you to achieve whatever result that you're trying to achieve. And I tell that to my clients, and I'm honest, and I always tell them what they need to hear. But other times, you can get away with being consistent and still see results and still achieve outcomes if you're actually putting in the work to be consistent in the process. Because a lot of times people say that they are, but they're not. And that's a bigger problem, because a lot of times it's because they don't have a plan for it. They don't organize themselves in a way that can actually be conducive to help them achieve their goals. And that's a bigger problem. And that's exactly why we need to obviously change some of those areas to make sure that you actually have a plan instead to be able to achieve those results. So that is a bigger thing that we had to understand, that, and I tell people, I learned this like way earlier in my career. People, and I used to say this to athletes when I work with athletes, people don't plan to fail. They fail to plan. If you are listening to this and you got out of your house not knowing what you're supposed to have for lunch, not knowing what you're supposed to be doing for training today, and all this uncertainty around your day as far as your nutrition, your fitness, and all these different things, then you don't have a plan. The same thing applies to your finances. If you have no idea how you're going to be spending your money this month, if you have no idea where it's going to go, or what it's going to, like, where you get, what the kind of things that you need to pay, and then your budget and all that kind of stuff, Of course, things are not going to go well. Of course, you may actually over budget yourself. Of course, you may actually run out of money to pay for groceries. Like, that's exactly the same thing that applies to your nutrition. You need to think about your nutrition and fitness as kind of like the same thing as a budget. You need to make sure you understand how it fits into everything to be in order for you to be able to achieve results and changes. So having a plan is number 2, and is a bigger part that you need to obviously understand that you need to focus on. Now, as we get more into the more nitty-gritty details as far as other reasons why people don't see the results that they expect to see, we get into the areas, for example, as eating too much and not really understanding that. So number 3, depending on your goal, eating too much, even of healthy or clean foods, can be the reason why you're not seeing results. What does that mean? Well, I thought I was supposed to be eating healthy. Just because you eat healthy and you eat smoothies and bowls and acai bowls and poke bowls, I don't know why I'm saying bowls so many times, but that's the first thing that comes to my head. Just because you're doing it over and over and over again doesn't mean that that is going to be immediately conducive to get you the results that you need. At the end of the day, my friends, there are specific laws of thermodynamics that dictate that, calories in, calories out is a big part of the concept. I'm not going to sit in here and debate whether it's all about calories in, calories out, regardless of what you eat. I do believe there's a big part of the equation that comes into play with that. I think there are other factors that come also into play. But at the end of the day, if you consume more calories than what your body requires, you're still going to either gain weight or not see the changes that you're expecting to see if fat loss is your goal. On the same token, you're trying to gain muscle and you're not really having a good breakdown and you're just simply consuming anything that you want to consume. Though you may be getting enough calories, you may not have the right breakdown to be able to support those goals of building muscle mass. So today, I need you to start to look in retrospect or simply look in self-reflection and understand, well, I eat healthy. Well, am I eating too much of the healthy foods? And maybe that's the reason why I'm not really kind of seeing the changes that I want to see. This comes in hand with the lack of awareness. And a lot of times the two things actually come in together. So you need to understand how they associate with it and what can you do to change it. Because this has happened to me. So this happens to a lot of dietitians, believe it or not. We know what to eat. We know how to eat healthy. We know how to eat the right things. And for the longest time, I started to slowly gain weight. I went from 170 to 185 pounds in the course of a year because, believe it or not, and I'm not blaming keto on this, but I wasn't really tracking anything. I was just eating a lot of high-fat foods, low-carb foods, and just because of that, I was just consuming way too many calories. And when you consume way too many calories and don't exercise to the same extent, or you don't exercise as much, or simply you eat a lot more than what you're actually exercising, you're going to obviously see some things happening. And one of them was weight gain. I was eating the right things to support the goals that I was trying to achieve, but then I was eating too much and I was not aware of that. So just because you're eating the right things doesn't mean that that's all you need to do to be able to get to that destination that you're trying to get to. So that is another important part of it. Number 4, the opposite, which is actually exercising too much and eating too little. So what does that mean? I often get clients that come to me and they are over excessive exercisers. So they train extremely hard, happens a lot with CrossFitters. And they eat nothing. So they eat 12, and this happens to men and women. This is not actually just women, which a lot of people associate the eating too little part. No, I've seen this in men plenty of times. A lot of times it happens in CrossFitters are super they train a lot. Other times it just happens to people that are just trying to improve their body composition. They're just too scared to eat. Happens a lot actually to people that lost a lot of weight in the past, believe it or not, and now they're just too afraid that they'll gain it back. Even people that have like a long history of it, but then they literally dropped a ton of weight. I see it very often that they're afraid to eat too much food. And that happens very often. Now, there's a difference that exists between the reality of what they eat and what they actually report. That's something in nutrition science called underreporting. Basically, they tell you that they eat this, but in reality, they're eating a lot more than that. Sometimes they don't even realize it themselves. But the other part is exactly what I'm talking about. They train so hard, which is actually a body, for the body is actually a stress, and they eat too little. their body's not recovering well, and your body kind of enters into a resistant state. It kind of hangs on to fat a little bit more than usual. And there's obviously a lot of people that would debate against this, and they say, you know what, like your body will lose weight if it's in a calorie deficit, no matter what you say. I do agree with that. But on the same token, in some cases, because if there are hormonal fluctuations that happens and you're exercising excessively, your body can start to produce more cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and can create certain imbalances that would actually get your body off track and make it more harder and more difficult for your body to be able to change and to adapt. So here's the thing that happens a lot with people that exercise too much and need too little. Your body goes into that resistant state in which it starts to move less. It drops like the basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories your body requires to be able to sustain basic living, or just like, your basic functions of your organs. And it just tries to, it's kind of like in that defensive mechanism in which it's trying to preserve. Is not trying to change. So of course it doesn't really want to get rid of fat like stores, because of the fact that that's the only kind of energy that it has to be able to support in times of starvation, which that's exactly what your body is thinking. Your body still lives. It doesn't matter what time frame in society we live in. It may be, we could be living in the area of our Paleolithic areas. It's still, your body is responding to the stimuli that is being put on. And if there's like a scarcity of food, your body's going to adapt to be able to adjust that situation. And that is the bigger thing. So a lot of people sometimes, when they do too much and eat too little, and the differences are so big and they do it for way too long, which is actually what happens with many chronic dieters, they tend to see a lot of resistance in the weight loss process. And that's another big part that I try to kind of tell people, hey, you need to obviously change things up. And then if you're listening to this, you're probably scared to think about you're telling me I need to be consuming more calories. Well, here's another thing that happens often. They exercise too much and they eat too little, but then on the days that they don't exercise, a lot of times, your body's going to be inclined to consume more calories in a very uncontrolled manner. It happens to the weekend eaters. So they train extremely hard during the week. And if you're listening to this, this actually releasing on a Tuesday. So if you're listening to this right now and it's a Tuesday, you're super methodical. You're going to train super hard. You're going to eat the right things and all this different shebang. But then on the same token, Saturday comes around and that's the day that you actually take it off and you go out with friends and you, or you go to this party or this thing and you drink alcohol. And obviously your body doesn't respond well to that. It's kind of like you are starving it all week, and then on weekends you actually go and eat everything that you couldn't have for the weekdays, and then obviously your body's going to respond unfavorably to that, and a lot of times it goes into storage mode. There are hormonal changes that happen in your body as a result, and you need to be able to kind of create more of a consistent pattern in the way your body is processing food, and that's a bigger part of it too. So that's number 4, and that's a bigger one that I need to make sure that you understand. Number 5, cookie cutter programs and cookie cutter diets. A lot of times this stuff works. The problem is it doesn't work long term. Why? Because when you think about you need to eat this specific foods for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, the problem is that you cannot sustain that for longer than 2 to 3 months. There are people that are routine freaks, and I respect them. But most humans, they like variety and they like change. They cannot eat the same thing, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 7 days a week, 365 days of a year. It's just not realistic. Now, there are obviously meal plan variations and adjustments and things like that. But me, for example, as a dietitian, I stopped doing meal plans a long time ago because of the fact that they provide directions. They teach you how to follow directions. You look at the paper and you say, okay, this is what I need to be putting on my plate. Why? Why do I need to be putting this amount in this thing? Oh, because my dietitian said so. Why? Well, because he knows what he's doing. Do you know what you're doing? No, but he does, and that's why I'm paying him. No, you're paying him so he can educate you and coach you through the process so you don't have to need them for the rest of your life. That's exactly what the biggest reason for that is. And as you're listening to this at the very end of 2019, you got to start to ask yourself, if you're hiring a professional to help you in your process, are you hiring somebody that's going to give you all not the results, but all the answers without explaining why those answers exist, or you prefer somebody to actually coach you through the process, so eventually you won't need anybody to be able to help you that, except because you may need just accountability in the process, which I will talk about in just a few seconds. That is a bigger question a lot of times you need to ask yourself before you jump into this like cookie cutter programs, before you go into Google and type this in, and then you get into like, lured into all this like, ads in Facebook and Instagram on like this like 30-day plan or 60-day program. If you're going to get into that, make sure that you understand like what are you getting into. Make sure you know exactly what is going to be provided to you. Is it just a meal plan, or is it actually a guide? Is it actually going to be information about how to follow it and the reasoning behind that, why that exists? I'm not against those things. I just want to make sure you get it from reputable sources that actually can teach you something good about it, not just give you a piece of paper with a list of foods that you need to be consuming, because again, it doesn't teach you anything good. You have no idea how many people I encounter on a daily basis that they think they know what they're doing, but they have no clue. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but I know basic nutrition science, and I know when some things are just completely out of, like, I just can't believe I'm hearing some of the things I'm hearing these days. Coming from people that are either coaches or nutritionists or sometimes even dietitians, and I'm not going to throw my profession under the bus, but a lot of times there's a lot of bad information out there, and you need to understand exactly how to trust in the right stuff out there to make sure that you can be conducive to good results in the process. If you look back and you start to think, if you do the math of the times that you've done something either on your own, or if you paid a small amount of money to get, how many of those times actually that led to anything good? That is a question for you to answer. That's a question for you to think about, because a lot of times the answer is, yeah, I spent a ton of money. I can tell you, I spent money on supplements because I heard about this like magic, super, what's it called? Like a supplement that like a nootropic to help me like be focused and productive. I spent like $150 in like 3 months of that. Do I use that? Did I get like this massive benefits from it? I don't think so. A lot of times we're lured into thinking of all this because of marketing tactics, and then we don't really understand exactly what are we getting into. That's an important part. Number 6, and the last one, which is actually lack of accountability. Most people are unsuccessful in nutrition progress because nobody's holding them accountable in the process. This is exactly what I was not successful in my process, because I didn't really have anybody that was actually holding me accountable to achieve what specific results, and that actually makes the process 10 times more difficult. Why? Because I don't have to report anything. I can eat that cookie if I want to. I can eat this. Who's going to say anything? Your lack of accountability, and then that paired up with lack of character in your process, is going to be dictating the outcomes that you achieve. There are people that are self-motivated and that can hold themselves accountable. I still believe that you need somebody that can actually help you stay online in whatever process you're on, whether it's financial, business, relationships, nutrition, fitness, and all. Because if you don't have that kind of person to kind of guide you in the right direction, a lot of times that you're just kind of like trying to shoot arrows in the dark because you're not an expert in everything. I'm not an expert in business, so I hire people that can help me in that. I'm not an expert in project management. I just hire somebody that can help me with that. I'm not a personal I am a personal trainer, but I don't plan my own thing, so I have coaches that can help me with that. You need to find people that can help you do certain things that you yourself could not do. You could do it on your own, but you cannot. There's probably a possibility that you can do it better if you had somebody that can help you out in the process. And that's it, my friends. 6 reasons why you might not be seeing the results that you're expecting to see. It's September, 4 months left to 2019. What are your goals that you're establishing for yourself, and what are you trying to work towards to accomplish? Are you there yet? If you're not there yet, what are the steps that you need to take to be able to get to those? And the 6 things that I just shared here with you, is there any of those that actually resonate with you as to why you may not be seeing the results that you're expecting to see? And share them with me. Shoot me a DM and tell me, like, dude, like the exercising too much and not having a plan is like the bigger ones that for me. I need to kind of change that. I'd love to have a conversation so I know a little bit more about you and exactly what are your struggles and and how can I help you accomplish them, or how can I help you provide some sort of support in the process to get you to that destination. And that's it, my friends. I'm going to try to keep today's podcast a little short. Make sure that you kind of get on with your day. So this a short Chit Chat series is going to be just a few 20 minutes. But hopefully this resonated with you. And if you did, make sure that, like I said, you shoot me a message on Instagram. And of course, just last but not least, just to finish this up, make sure you leave us a review, guys. It's very important for us to know how we're doing, and I think that's like the bigger part of VV Nutrition Radio and what helps it grow. And we're gonna have like amazing guests like coming up in the future. We're gonna have Steve Hall from Revive Stronger, Mike T. Nelson coming to talk about heart rate variability, and other guys are gonna be dropping some massive value. But in order for us to increase visibility and for more people to know about us, your reviews are everything. So take some time, just leave a review on iTunes or on Google Play. I'm not even sure how you can do that. But we would be forever grateful, and you can kind of like let us know what we think. Last but not least, on our website, Vive Nutrition, it's www.vive-nutrition.com. We do have an intermittent fasting free guide. A lot of people ask me questions about intermittent fasting, and it's like over 60 minutes of video courses that contain a lot of information about how to, the history behind fasting. Should you go on that kind of approach or not? What are some of the steps that you need to take to do it effectively? And I added all that stuff into 4 or 5 different videos that are delivered directly to your email completely for free. Just go in there, drop your email, drop your name, and you start getting a lot of that information from me. So without further ado, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in another episode of VV Nutrition Radio. I'll see you guys next week. Have an amazing one.
You have been listening to VV Nutrition Radio. Couple of things before you take off. If you enjoyed this episode, please, I would love to get your feedback. So feel free to drop down a review, and I will be forever grateful. Also, if you like this podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have it on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. And lastly, if you would like to receive a freebie from me, make sure you sign up for our newsletter at www.vive-nutrition.com. See you guys in the next episode. Ciao, ciao.